Welcome, everybody. How sweet it is to be here in this time and space again. So cool. I'm Rolly Hazard, and I'm going to do my best to keep the crowd under control as the service coordinator today. I'll do my best. I've only done this a few times, so I may trip up every once in a while. Leon will give today's reflection entitled Patience Has Hopeful Eyes, and vice versa. If you're visiting the North Chapel for the first time or from afar, please raise your hand or stand up and let us know who you are. And I can bring a mic if you like, but great if you can stand up and say. Welcome. Yeah, please sign the book in the back if you get a chance. That'd be great. Now, this is a good time to turn off your cell phone. Actually, most times is a good time to turn off your cell phone. That's just my opinion. I'm old enough to say that. There are lots of things going on in the North Chapel, as always. Please have a look at the order of service. And if there are any other announcements, please raise your hand and let me know. The most important one that I know of is that there's lemonade at the end of the service out on the front porch. Oh, good.
I will be looking for some brave culinary artists who are interested in learning how to use the pizza oven to make all things delicious. I'm going to set up a couple of classes, but I know nothing about how to do this. So if you're interested in learning how to do it, I'm going to look for some people who are wiser than me to do it. We had a beautiful pizza last night. It came out of a pizza oven, and we're going to cook that up. So if you're interested, please look for me. There'll be an advertisement in later publications.
It's great to see that there are kids here today, right? Yep. Raise your hand if you're a kid. There we go. Nice. It's so sweet to be amongst friends. And Chloe Powell is here to take care of them as the time comes. My discomfort, the more clearly I realize that my trouble about this word came from its implication of an underlying assumption that everything, every person, every event, every atom is somehow separate in its primeval state. This perception is the foundation of materialism. It does leave room, however, for a central force, a kind of quivering magnetism that somehow holds the observable universe together. In one view, God created all these particles and people and holds them together with divine love, or something like that. But another way to look at the universe is to see the universe like water. You all know about water, so me talking about it is kind of like putting red paint on a rose. But consider this. Walk with me down to the river and fill your bucket with it. Oops. Now your bucket is no longer holding the river. It has water in it. It's water, and it was also water when it was in the river. And it will still be water when it evaporates and becomes a cloud. And when it condenses and becomes rain, it will still be water. And if it falls into the river, you can put it back in your bucket if you're still around. So where is the connection in all this water? Is it in the force that keeps the water's electrons spinning safely in their orbits around the nuclei? What if instead of looking for the glue in the water, we just took a deep breath and allowed ourselves to accept the water for what it is? What if we accepted each other in this way? May we hold each other in our hearts knowing that we are not only swimming in the same river, we are the river, and the river is us.
On this Sunday, as we consider finding patience within ourselves, as we think about this interconnected web and our connectedness to one another, I want to invite Brianne Gallagher to share a public thought. Her Facebook post from the end of May that talks about the larger context in which our patience and our connection and interconnection seem to be both impossible and necessary. Brianne, would you come up?
Good morning. Thank you. So weird. Between following the unfolding of events in Haiti, Ukraine, the US-Mexican border, and Buffalo and Uvalde, I feel like everyone else I know. This past week, when I dropped my kiddo off at school, I held onto her so tight and kissed her goodbye. I've been treasuring each moment even more so than I used to with her. And I've been thinking a lot about the parents and mothers of the children who have died this last month, and often in terribly gruesome ways. I imagine their children and their hopes and smiles when I look at my daughter. Each child is so special. Every child is so special. The loss of a child for a mother must be like torture. I'm not sure I could live through it. Just the thought of a moment of such grief fills my eyes with tears. I am grateful to be alive and to love and be loved, and with her here. And all of this could have been prevented and never had to happen. I was able to cry on Sunday morning after a long week of trying to get through what I had to do. I feel so sad and devastated over the gruesome death of so many humans and non-humans, and especially so many children, just tiny humans. It's also terrible, and I find refuge in my daily tasks. Parenting, trying to be a community member, and doing my job, which keeps me grounded alongside other feminist-friendly women who are invested in advocacy work and preventative education work to try to end gender-based violence in place-based or community-type work and learning to love again.
Pierre, when I went to college, I studied with a professor named T.J. Anderson, who's a Unitarian actually, but he went to a church in Winchester, just outside of Boston, and he was one of the people who learned Scott Joplin's repertoire and knew it most wonderfully. If he were here, he would be so elated and thankful. T.J. Anderson, Thomas Jefferson Anderson, African-American composer, 20th century composer. So thank you. Before we start, have you guys ever seen a movie? I think it was called Time to Kill. It was based on a John Grisham novel. It starred Sam Jackson and Matthew McConaughey, who's from Uvalde, Texas, actually, and Sandra Bullock and Ashley Judd. It's a mid-90s film about two murder cases and the penalty of death. One case was racially charged and the other was racially motivated. A black man in the South had avenged his daughter's death and taken the law into his own hands. Lawyers argued and jurors deliberated in order to find the meaning of justice in that circumstance. Do you know that film? A Time to Kill is what. I keep thinking about that these days. Anyway, good morning. Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. Today is Sunday, July the 3rd. Tomorrow is Independence Day. The title of this morning's reflection is Patience Has Hopeful Eyes and Vice Versa. Because hope has patient eyes. And she really has to have patient eyes because it takes a while for the good to unfold and to reveal itself. Hateful things come quickly. They force urgency upon us. Hope is different. Hope lingers. She lingers when she's at her best. There's a song by a woman named Jonathan Brooke that I used to sing, a song called The War. I sing it to myself mostly, more and more these days. It goes, every morning I get up and I watch the war. And every morning it upstages all my favorite shows. Donahue, Hogan's Heroes. You remember the Phil Donahue show, right? And do you remember Hogan's Heroes? It was a sitcom set in a Nazi camp for American prisoners of war. A lot of that humor was lost on me. I did much better with MASH. But I still watched Hogan's Heroes when I was young and when I was sick enough to stay home from school. Art helps us to process the old wounds. It takes us a while to heal from trauma. Hogan's Heroes helped us to process the trauma of World War II. MASH helped us to process Korea. The song I like that my friend Jonathan Brooke wrote helps us to process the war in Bosnia. The poet makes light of wartime inconveniences. She is terse, ironic, and intentionally naive, reducing the lethal conflict to triviality. She sings, but it's the American way, and it's the new world order. We hold these truths to be self-evident, which is a Jefferson quote. And in the American day, you must give and I shall take. I will tell you what is moral and what's just because I want, because I will, because I can. So will I kill. What drives us to war? What drives us to shatter that interconnected web of which we are all a part? What leads us to conflict? Is patience useful here? It is so much not enough to be inconvenienced and annoyed that syndicated TV shows are displaced by the realities of war. It is so easy to numb ourselves to the impacts of national distress, so easy to dumb ourselves down and to stay distant, unless, of course, we are serving in the military ourselves, or our friends and our families are involved. Society breaks down into two experiential camps. We can become divided from one another as a subtle consequence of war. This is what the song is pointing out. Danelle Sims read a poem at last week's Ukraine fundraiser, which was truly an exquisite event. Thank you, Peg Brightman, and everyone involved, everyone who participated. During this event, Danelle offered a poem, Clickbait, by Lynn Byler. The poem is about becoming divided from oneself by commercial powers of distraction. Byler writes, "It is not new, the contrast between life here and there. What is new are the cookies and embedded trackers telling me that a particular clothing company is, I am a viable customer, and that there's a 30% off sale, and this might capture my attention. I am affronted." The Times headlines reads, 136 civilians killed in the first 5 days, and immediately below, the clothing store is telling me to shop now. As bombs are falling in Kharkiv, we are asked to shop for better sweaters. We are asked to ignore the casual brutality of that request. Byler continues, noting that the marketing agents at the clothing company somehow know or bet that there is a point where my affront will wane, that weary of the war in Ukraine, my eye will wander, and I will imagine the sweater I see on the woman in the ad will look as good on me. Odds are good, or someone must believe that before long I will pull the trigger. Maybe unwittingly, we are less distant from the war than we think. Maybe in some deeper sense, we are so desperately close to it sometimes, so dangerously close sometimes, to the buy buttons, to the clickbait, to the triggers that are so easy for us to use, so easy that even a child could do it, and they do. When we lose hope, when we lose patience, when we don't slow down enough to know one another, slow down enough to realize that what we are doing is causing us anxiety, when we don't slow down to realize how tense we have become. A great power is in our hands, and it has nothing to do with being online. There is no discount. There can be no discount for the kind of power that I'm talking about. I'm talking about patience, which I think is actually a kind of bravery. If I had been brave years ago, I might have started off my concert by singing that song, the one called The War. Every morning I get up and I watch the war. And every morning it upstages all my favorite shows. Donahue, Hogan's Heroes. If I had been brave, I would have done that, but I wasn't brave. I was afraid. I was nervous about playing my first solo concert in Beaufort, not Beaufort, but Beaufort, South Carolina. I was a northerner out of place, afraid of the shadow, afraid of the legacy, afraid of life beneath the Mason-Dixon line. I had real and ridiculous reasons to be afraid at that time. So I started off safely. I started off the show with a song that is familiar to me. I started off the show with the same song that I started off most of my shows with back then. I played Angel from Montgomery by John Prine. I did it in G with the guitar wide open, just like we did in youth camp. Playing this song helps me to open my heart to those good people. Life is crazy these days. It seems like such hard work sometimes to gather the courageous spirit, to gather in the spirit of peace, to gather the spirit of love and life and justice all as one. The artists are doing us this favor. They are doing this for us, the wise ones all around us. The artists are like flowers. They love first and unconditionally. They are like flowers lifting their eyes to the sky and the sunlight and the water. They respond in kind, quenching, nourishing, strengthening us, ennobling us. Sunlight and water, they respond to the flower's longing. The sunlight that builds up within us responds. It says yes to the flower. And the waters that we store inside, they respond, saying yes to life, saying yes in the quietest of ways. Lo Lily reaches down with both of her gentle arms and lifts us all in challenging times. Lo Lily does. And I mean this in two ways. The low lily is a flower that has not yet reached its height and can easily reach down for us and help us to rise. And Low Lily is a singing group that recently performed in Barnard. They sing a song that I love called Hope Lingers Here, powerful in its simplicity. My mother, when hope is gone, my mother, when hope is gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. My father, when peace is gone, my father, when peace is gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. Get it? The second and the third verses repeat the form and draw us in further. My sister, when equality's gone. My brother, when tolerance gone. My love, when honor is gone. My country, when justice is gone. My country, when justice is gone. In our darkest hour, hope lingers on. They sing, I will not hate, and I will not fear. In my darkest hour, hope lingers here. And it's true. She really does. If you don't believe me, just look at your orders of service. And there she is, lingering. Lo Lily performed at Feast and Field a week and a half ago, but I was late getting to the show and I missed their performance of this song and I was sad about it. So when the concert was over and Lo Lily was relaxing off stage, I pestered them. I asked them if they might sing just a few seconds of that song so that I could feel the music live and directly without a recording. And they were gracious enough to do so. And when they did, I realized that I was only hearing 3 of the 4 voices that I knew from my memory. There are 4 voices on that song. There are 3 of them, but they double-tracked the male voice. So humbly, I sang the 4th part, and luckily, I got it right. Chloe caught it on camera, and she posted the video online on our Facebook page. One of the best Facebook posts ever, maybe trailing after yours, Brianne. Such joy surrounded us all. It was like we had known each other for a good long time, even though we hadn't even really met. They didn't know me, and I didn't know them. We were all just singing together. We were all like flowers in a garden, gently singing, loving first and unconditionally, lifting our eyes to the sky. And the sunlight and the water responded in kind, quenching, nourishing, strengthening us, ennobling us, teaching us, reminding us to say yes to life. It's pretty scary to say yes to life. You have to be brave if you're going to do it. It's pretty scary to step into that energy, into the best part of ourselves. It is delicious and it's fantastic, but it really can be scary. I think that we are learning something here. I think that we are learning something because if a young woman like Cassidy Hutchinson can step into her power and her beauty, why can't we? Cassidy Hutchinson is that 25-year-old low-level White House staffer who just interviewed in front of the January 6th committee. She offered explosive testimony. She blew the doors off the place. She blew the doors off the nation by stepping into her power and by saying yes to life. I wasn't able to be that brave when I was beginning the solo concert in South Carolina. I eventually got there when I finally relaxed, when I finally unclenched my teeth, when I finally let my shoulders down, when I softened my belly and laughed and stopped breathing so shallowly. When we are afraid, we hardly breathe at all, as little as possible, which only makes matters worse. It's a flaw in the human programming. but it can be overcome. Not easily, but it can be done. You just have to be intentional about it. When we're tense, we miss things. When we're scared, we put on blinders and we tense up. And I was tense, so when I played that solo concert in Beaufort, South Carolina, so scared. I couldn't really see what was going on. And what was going on was actually fascinating, but only if you're a diehard Unitarian Universalist. UU congregations in the continental United States used to be divided into 19 separate districts. The names of these districts roughly describe where they were. Sometimes you can kind of tell. Alphabetically, those districts were Bellew Channing, Central Midwest, Clara Barton, Florida, Heartland, Joseph Priestley, Mass Bay, which is Boston, obviously, Metro New York, Mid-South, Mountain Desert, Northern New England, which is us, Ohio Meadville, Prairie Star, Southwestern, St. Lawrence, Pacific Central, Pacific Northwest, Pacific Southwest, and Thomas Jefferson, which was Virginia, half of Tennessee, the easternmost part of Georgia, all of North Carolina, and all of South Carolina. That district was considering a name change at that time. I was playing a concert in the Thomas Jefferson district. The concert was part of a 3-day gathering of Unitarian Universalists from that region who were trying to change the name because Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. Leaders of that effort were deeply uncomfortable with that history and they didn't like the way it figured in our faith. Informally speaking, Thomas Jefferson was Unitarian. And here's a tough one for the Supreme Court, Extreme Court originalists. It was Jefferson's understanding that in short order and as a matter of course, the entire country would soon be Unitarian. Jefferson thought this was inevitable. He was not right about that. Let me know if I'm mistaken here, but as far as I know, the United States of America is not a predominantly Unitarian Universalist. In fact, according to the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life, Unitarian Universalists account for, you want to guess what % of the population? I see 4. Do I hear 5? 5. I hear 1. I saw one originally. 2? If you times it by 3, you'll be right, Peter. We account for 0.3% of the US population. So are we out on a limb here? I'm really asking, it's a real question, because if we are not out on a limb, we have just disproved the idea that the founding fathers were somehow infallible. Indeed, the originals were not originalists. They knew that they were flawed. Thomas Jefferson said things that were true, and he said things that were not true, just like each of us. And Thomas Jefferson did things that were so good, and he did things that were not so good, just like all of us. And Jefferson knew, as we all know, that life is beautifully complex. It changes, we grow, we evolve somehow, we mature, we all get better. And we've enshrined this process, this dynamic, this sense of growth and change, we've enshrined it, monumentally in fact, in the marble of the Jefferson Memorial that now proudly stands at 16 East Basin Street Southwest in Washington, D.C. Quite literally, we've written Jefferson's words in stone. So I want the so-called originalists, the Supreme Court lawyers, to read them carefully, because Thomas Jefferson deeply believed in change. His words were these: "I am not an advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths discovered, and manners and opinions change, with the change of circumstances, institutions must advance also to keep pace with the times. We might as well require a man to wear still the coat that fitted him when he was a boy. We do otherwise. In grace, we grow beyond our elders. We outstretch the shadow cast by our barbarous ancestors, to quote Jefferson. We choose freedom and we dignify that choice. Today we must hold fast to this. We have to cleave to this, mustn't we? Clarence, Samuel, Neil, Brett, Amy, and sometimes John. Don't we need to find the good way forward together as one? My love, when honor is gone, my love, when honor is gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. My country, when justice is gone, my country, when justice is gone, in our darkest hour, hope lingers on. Beneath the breath that's trapped inside of us, when we are bound in fear, beneath the breath, there is a flower, a lovely lily, that is growing up brave and free. The sunlight and the waters respond slowly, too slowly sometimes, and this is why we must be patient. Patient as we protest in the streets of our country, patience as we power down the systems of oppression. Martin Luther King spoke of the fierce urgency of now, and he was right. Having patience does not mean that we believe that that fierce urgency is not upon us. It surely is. Having patience is not a form of waiting. It is a decision to remain wholehearted. It is a commitment to be loving and true. It is the wise determination to be brave, because it takes a while for the good things to unfold sometimes. Now, you didn't tell me earlier whether or not you remembered the film, the one that I was talking about, the mid-90s film about the court case with a man who was avenging his daughter and had taken the law into his own hands. The battle cry went out and there was fighting in the streets. Warring sides were arguing for opposite outcomes from the court. Both were passionate. One side was dressed in black, black t-shirts with white lettering. The other side was dressed in white, white t-shirts with black lettering. One side was chanting, free him, which was written on their shirts. The other side was chanting, fry him, which was written on their shirts, and smack dab in between them, servicing them both, was a van stocked to capacity, chock full of black and white t-shirts. Live action clickbait. In between the warring factions, a group of people was making a killing, having figured out how to benefit from both sides and playing them against the other, without truly helping either one of them. This is how it is for us sometimes. Now, I had to watch the movie twice before that part made sense to me. I was too distracted by other things. We have to learn to be patient, because the first time through the story, we might be too reactive, too triggered, too anxious and afraid. We might be more likely to choose sides and less likely to allow ourselves to be patient. We have to be patient. We have to understand the fierce urgency of now, and patience is the key. We cannot find hope until we linger. I will not hate, and I will not fear. In our darkest hour, hope lingers here, and it's true, she does. And if you want proof, just look at your covers of the orders of service, and there it is. Hope lingers here. It's larger than the houses that we make for it sometime, but it's here. Patience lingers. Patience can be deeper than the ocean when we allow it to be, when we let it not replace our sense of urgency, for the hour is upon us, make no mistake about that. Patience is deeper than the ocean when we let it inform our urgency, when we don't need to vanquish the enemy, when we don't need to fight with one another in disagreement. We need to outgrow the clothing that was made for us when we were younger. We need to get on the move, finding ourselves and one another on the journey of becoming even more beautiful than we already are. Flowers can do it, so why can't we? Maybe so. Blessed be and amen.